Let's wrap this trig derivatives lesson up with a discussion about harmonic motion. Harmonic motion is just periodic motion. That just means that it is a pattern that repeats itself after some fixed time interval that we call a period. It's cyclical. And examples of this might be something like a pendulum or a mass on a spring. It's just supposed to do the same thing over and over and over again. And you've got two different flavors of this. You got your simple harmonic motion, and simple harmonic motion just simply means it's not damped. It doesn't slow down. Your amplitude remains constant, and there's, the assumption that there's no friction or air resistance. How many times in your physics book have you read ignoring friction or air resistance, right? Because whenever you start not ignoring it, your problem becomes a little bit more challenging. Okay, so simple harmonic motion, when it just keeps going over and over again, doing the same exact pattern, it can be modeled by a sinusoid. A sinusoid is just the graph of a sine or a cosine. All right, and then here's an example of that, right? Just over and over and over and over again. And the other kind of harmonic motion is damped, where it's slowing down. And the amplitude or the oscillation is getting closer and closer to zero. So here's what one of those might look like. And maybe what you do is you take your sine and you multiply it by, it could be a linear function that you multiply it by. It could be, let's say, an exponential equation that you multiply it by, which is going to slowly decrease that amplitude. All right, but we're going to assume an easy problem here, an easier problem with a simple harmonic motion here for this very last one. Okay, example 9, an object at the end of a vertical spring is stretched downward 4 centimeters beyond its rest position and released at time t equals 0. Its position at time t is s of t is equal to negative cosine t. Okay, so we're going to pull this mass down. It's going to stretch all the way down to 4 meters below its centimeters below its equilibrium point. Then it's going to release, and of course it's going to bounce up, come back down, up, down, and we're assuming that it's going to go on and on forever because there's no friction and there's no air resistance and everything is perfect. Anyway, so then we have some questions to deal with this. When is the speed of the object greatest? Now speed I'm going to get first from velocity, so I'll take the derivative of this. It's going to give me velocity, and then what do I have to do to velocity to get speed? I just take the absolute value of that. When is the speed of the object the least? And then finally, how about the acceleration? When is the acceleration of the object the greatest? How do I find acceleration? I find acceleration by taking the velocity function and then taking one more derivative. All right, let's take some derivatives, shall we? So we're going to need a little bit. Oh, you just got some spoilers there, some graphs. Okay, so we're back to purple. S of t being equal to negative 4 cosine t. We want to take its derivative in order to find the velocity function. So velocity is negative 4 times the derivative of cosine, which is negative sine. And of course our negatives cancel. I just get 4 sine t. Hey, what about the speed? The speed function would be equal to the absolute value of that. So all of the little humps that are down below the x-axis, they're just going to hop up above it. Okay. So there's that stuff, and then I'm actually going to look at the graphs in order to be able to answer these first two questions. I think it's a little bit easier whenever instead of looking at the actual equations, but especially since we don't have the calculus yet, which is going to allow us to optimize this to find the biggest and the smallest of something. That'll be coming up soon. It's one of the applications, a major application of derivatives. Anyway, we also want to find the acceleration. So we're going to find the acceleration by taking the derivative of the velocity, or two derivatives of the position. Acceleration is going to be 4 cosine. Okay, so then we scroll down here and then we'll see all of those little graphs. Okay, so let me just remind you, S, this one is the position one, which S of t was equal to negative 4 cost. And then our velocity function, v of t, was equal to 4 sine t. And then finally our acceleration, 4 cosine t. Okay, so a couple of questions that we were asked about was, when is the speed the greatest? So, and actually to get the speed, I don't have the speed graphed. I would have to take the portion of this velocity function that's down here and I'd have to reflect it up here. Remember, a negative velocity doesn't mean that anything is slowing down. It just means that it's a downward or leftward kind of motion. Okay, so if I were to reflect this piece up, you're going to have like these little sharp turns. That's glorious. It's perfect. Okay, so where is this speed the biggest? So the speed is biggest right here at the top of these little peaks, right? So speed's increasing, reaches a peak, then it starts to decrease, and then it's 0. And then speed is increasing, and then it's decreasing again. All right, so maximum speed happens. Let's see. Let's trail this thing right back down to the blue function. And the blue function's at the x-axis here. That means the position is 0. That's at equilibrium. So at the equilibrium for this spring, that's when your speed is greatest. Maybe I write something down. When is the speed greatest? At equilibrium. Did I spell it correctly? We'll go with it. Okay. And then when was the speed the least? So the speed is the least right here at pi and at 2 pi. That's when the velocity is actually 0 right there, right? And then again, where did those things actually happen? Oh, actually right here too. That happens at the peaks. That happens at the peaks. Right? No, here, this one. There we go. And that's happening whenever it's stretched out to its max. That's maximum displacement. So it happens at 4 and then up here again at negative. No, at negative 4 down here and positive 4. So that's at the least speed is at max displacement. Let's write that. Right, at either negative 4, this is misleading, should be negative 4 because then the positive 4 is up here. Whatever, okay. And then when is the acceleration of the object the greatest? Let's take a look at that again. So the acceleration is the red graph. When is it the greatest? And here, we could do the same kind of thing and say, hey, this is just a negative acceleration. Negative acceleration doesn't mean that something's slowing down again, it's just indicating a direction. Okay. So this happens at what points? It happens at the exact same points that we just mentioned here, which were the, oh, I erased that one. Oops. Those were the, wait, no, looking at the wrong graph. Blue graph. There's too many graphs going on here. So it's at the points where we hit the maximum displacement, right? It's maximum displacement. It's the same answer. It's the same answer as part C. Which is interesting. All right, so in another unit, in another chapter or whatever of this book, we'll find out how to do all of this without having to depend upon the graph, that we should be able to just look at the functions there, do some calculus with those functions in order to find the greatest and the least of something. But for right now, that we'll just have to do. And in the meantime, recap, we were able to come up with all the derivative rules for the trig functions, like the derivative of sine is cosine, the derivative of cosine is negative sine. We also noticed that all the cofunctions, all the ones that start with c, those derivatives were all negative, which was interesting. It's just convenient. It doesn't mean anything special other than the fact that it'll help me remember which ones are positive versus which ones are negative. All right, and then you have a double assignment here, PP. What is that all about?